And I've been here for about 1.5 years now. And through my interactions with you all, with colleagues, and through my interactions with students, we decided that this would be an important session to have as we further support our neurodiverse student group and our colleagues that are neurodiverse as well, and that identify with this particular identity. So,
It's me.
Oh, Brad. It's Brad. Of course it's Brad.
So while we wait for that, one of the things about what you have in your hands is your muscle memory. So by playing with those while you're learning, you are more likely to retain the information you know. So when you see students playing with things in class while you're lecturing, not always the worst thing that they could be doing, because it can help them retain. Does everybody have something? Cheers.
Alright, so we have I don't know if that's a rigorous agenda or not, but you can see exactly what we're going to focus on. And, but first, I would like to have everyone up here introduce themselves. We have a community partner here. We have one of our CAPS colleagues here. And then, of course, we have folks here from Blue Ash. So this was an adventure for us to get together and to create this session for you all. So I already introduced myself. Sam?
Yeah. Samantha Cook, you can call me Sam. I am she, hers. I am the Associate Director of Clinical Services at CAPS. And so I am in charge of making sure that we are addressing the concerns that our students are managing. And one of my passions happens to be supporting neurodiverse students.
My name is John Kramer. I'm in the accessibility office. I help coordinate student accommodation plans. And then sometimes if you have questions, I'm probably one of the people that you'll be talking to about that.
Hey, John's been here 25 years this year. Wasn't on the presentation this morning, but he's been here 25 years. I'm Megan Luttrell. I'm the Director of Accessibility Resources for the regional programs. So I oversee Claremont, Blue Ash, CCP, and UC Online. And these are all from our new sensory room that's being built at UC Claremont. So everything that we have here is part of that group.
Hi, I'm Brad Mallory. I'm the new Assistant Dean of Inclusive Excellence. And when it comes to equity and inclusion, you can't have equity and inclusion without accessibility, and you can't have a conversation without accessibility without considering the students and just the learners and the workers and staff and faculty in our population that we might need to support. So that's why I'm here.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Parrott. I'm a board certified behavior analyst and I work at Beyond the Label.
She'll talk more about that later.
All right. So I'm a recovering biology professor as well, and so I'm well versed with learning outcomes. And so by the end of today's session, if everything goes according to plan, we'll have a shared definition of what neurodiverse means. We'll define the term autism. So I think Tamisha will talk a little bit, or someone will talk a little bit more about why we are focusing on autism in regard to the range of neurodiverse behaviors. Recognize behaviors related to students with autism particularly, discuss and develop strategies to support neurodiverse students, and we have some scenarios that we'll be working through and some videos and things like that. So looking from the perspective of someone with autism or someone, so from that perspective, and then having someone with that perspective kind of sharing what it's like, and then identify additional resources that we can use in our communities to support one another.
So neurodiverse is just a broad term that describes the unique way that the brain works differently than the average person. So it's a broad umbrella in autism, ADHD, dyslexia, Tourette's, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia. All these learning disabilities fall under the term neurodiverse. And it's an identity that celebrates unique strengths and perspectives that challenge stigma and promote inclusion. So one doctor says, neurodiverse students are wonderful students. They can be really creative, big picture, out-of-the-box thinkers. They'll say things others are afraid to say, which is a lot of times what can get them into trouble.
One thing to keep in mind is neurodiversity is not a diagnosis. So as far as providing accommodations, it is an identity that our students can identify with, but their diagnosis would be the things that were mentioned above. So just something to keep in mind.
And along those lines, when it comes to identity, we get to choose our identity. So keep that in mind as well. There are some folks that say, I do not fall underneath this umbrella, even though I may have dyslexia. So just keep that in mind as well.
And more specifically, we're going to be focusing on autism today. And it's just a neurological disorder that affects people in a variety of ways. There's 3 main core deficits: communication, social impairments, and like repetitive or restrictive behaviors. But just because they're the 3 core deficits does not mean that every individual with autism might have a communication deficit or a social impairment. There's a big saying in the autism community that you meet a person with autism and you meet one person with autism. Not everyone is the same, and what will work with someone won't work with another person with autism.
1 in 54 people are diagnosed with autism now. So that number, if you think about our students, that's a significant amount of our numbers. So why we chose to focus on autism is we're seeing a larger amount of students come in with autism, and the way they learn and the way they behave on our campus is different. Autism wasn't formally diagnosed is the way we know it now until 1994. So with the increase in specialized services in elementary schools and high schools, since then, our students that have autism are able to achieve things that they haven't been able to achieve before. And so we just want to make sure that our faculty and our staff have what they need to be able to support these students.
All right, so this is a video from Carly's Cafe. Carly is an autistic creator, and she created alongside her father this really powerful video. And so this is sort of an experience that Carly is saying happens for her. Carly is also a nonverbal individual, so she has some difficulty with expressing her thoughts, feelings, and her needs.
I can't wait for coffee. Oh, hello, barista.
What do you guys want?
Skim soy latte? Darren, soy can't be skim.
Hot chocolate, orange juice.
No, Dad, I want a coffee. Hot chocolate? Great. So I just need to go to Sarah's later. Can you give me a ride?
Yeah, sure. Are you cool with taking your sister?
Yeah. Wait, what? I have my own plane. Okay, I'll see you tonight.
Carly, how can I help?
I'm a processor, so I am curious, what feelings are you having right now?
Sadness.
Any other emotions?
Frustration.
Frustration, yeah.
Empathy.
I'm sorry?
Empathy.
Empathy,
Anxiety.
anxiety,
Concern.
concern,
Fear.
fear. It's a lot. It's an overwhelming experience for a lot of our students in certain situations that feel really overwhelming for them. So as you saw in that video, Carly was experiencing a lot of sensitivity. So that's not necessarily a core diagnostic feature, but it is a really common experience for a lot of students with autism. So a student with autism might be feeling really sensitive to the person's cologne that's sitting next to them or down on the opposite side of the room. They might be experiencing a lot of sensitivity to lights, those fluorescent lights. I hate them. They make a buzzing noise. They're a wavelength that nobody likes. And so in my office, I don't use them. I purposefully use floor lamps that have a much cooler tone.
We have these too that go over them to soften them. I don't know that facilities would be super into it, but they are fire safe. So they just clip on.
Yeah, yeah. And we've had students who, there's a light that might be making a noise that nobody else in the room is maybe sensitive to, but that student is really having a hard time focusing on your lecture because there's a buzzing noise. Textures. If y'all saw in the basket out there, there's some sensory strips that are little stickers. Students like putting them on their phones, tables, things like that. I believe Accessibility Resources has them on the table in their testing center. So sensitivity to textures, particular clothing items maybe they're wearing, and then pressure as well. A lot of individuals really like weighted blankets. That's a popular thing recently, but I know that a lot of individuals with autism really benefit from that. I love it. You're like just demonstrating everything I'm saying. Really benefit from that pressure on their shoulders, their arms, their legs, wherever they're feeling that anxiety. All right, a lot of individuals need organization predictability. If you remember a little bit about the symptoms that we might be looking at, there might be some difficulty with not having a predictable routine, and an individual with autism might have repetitive behaviors, restrictive interests to deal with some of those overwhelming experiences that they're going through. So having a space that is organized, predictable, is going to be a helpful thing for an individual with autism.
Sam, can I just add to that?
Yeah.
Jen said in the convocation presentation about the way that Canvas courses are set up and the transition from COVID and how things were more organized. And so just thinking about that being helpful to all students, but particularly this population of students could probably benefit from that level of organization and structure.
Yeah, our students with autism are very rule-based, and so they have, really specific guidelines can be extremely helpful.
They're very black and white.
Very black and white, yeah. Difficulty reading your facial or nonverbal expressions, that's a direct symptom of autism, and so they might not understand when you are saying something with sarcasm and maybe making a joke. They might think that that's a literal truth. And we have a little more conversation around that later. And then if you need to set a boundary with an individual, again, if we're going back to that need for predictability, structure, rules, if we use things like if-then statements. If you need help, then you can email me. If I'm not available by email, then you can call me. between these hours. Again, making it very specific. If I don't answer you within 24 hours, then you can send me another email. And so it's really important to really think about how you're phrasing it so that that rule-based understanding is clear to an individual with autism.
Yeah, so one of the things before we transition, just to add, and I know we've been identifying just some of the maybe potential triggers or challenges, but this population of students, this is a wonderful population of students that bring a richness to the classroom, and some of the questions that they ask that other students might not ask, those are the questions that everyone needs to hear, but everyone's too cool to kind of say it. And so as we go through this presentation and this conversation that we have, this discussion that we have today, I don't want us to have a lens of like, oh, this is challenging. And I know that some of the emotions that Carly's video evoked are reasonable emotions, but I want us to see the opportunities of being able to engage with and work with these students and the benefits that they bring to us and the entire class.
It's a really great point.
I would also add that as we watch everybody playing with the toys and passing around the weighted blanket, trying it out, all of these things could help all of our students, right? They could all benefit our students to be thinking about better organization of our courses and the lighting in our areas, things like that. So
Yeah. I think Heidi Pettijohn, who's
my boss.
your boss, yes, once talked about in a presentation, she said, which was, inclusive design is good design. So if you are inclusively thinking about your course for an individual with either a learning concern or autism or ADHD, we're actually really making it an accessible course for all people in that. So I think that our neurodiverse students are actually challenging us to do better.
Right. Very nice way to put it.
So an individual with autism might have some difficulties expressing themselves clearly in the moment. So one strategy for dealing with that situation might be to provide the instructions in multiple modalities, email, a verbal discussion, reminder on the day of the lecture, and another strategy, I don't know if I think I put it later, is to just say, hey, here are some things that I would like to talk about, and then give them some space to think about it. When would you like to discuss it? So you're giving them some time to process, to collect their thoughts, to collect their words and how they want to express themselves. As you can see with the video that Carly developed with her father, it was really powerful, right? She had a lot to say. She had a lot of really important things in that video. And I think that speaks to the creativity that our students really do have. It may take them a moment to process. Again, we talked about this with the facial expressions and not understanding nonverbal cues. An individual might make different interpretations regarding your intent, your emotional expression. Again, sarcasm, though it can be kind of fun to joke around with our students, sometimes, if we're not really direct about the fact that we are joking, someone might take that literally, and it might hurt their feelings. And then a student might get stuck on a particular line of thinking, a topic, a particular interest. And so a good line to kind of interrupt this if it's becoming disruptive is to say, I'm noticing blank, and I'm wondering if you may need blank. So it's an observation. This is also a really huge strength for our students who are neurodiverse, right? If you have a student who is really interested in a particular topic, they are going to research it night and day. They are going to know it inside and out. They are going to be your best student. So, yeah, again, really thinking about those strengths of our students who are autistic. So, do you want me to? No, I can. Do you want me to? Yeah.
So we'll transition now into, this is a guy, his name is Orion Kelly, and he's someone that self-identifies as someone who has autism. But he's really funny, he has a pretty big following, and what we're going to do now is talk through a few scenarios that we might encounter. So these are fictitious scenarios that we've come up with, but they're kind of based on experiences and feedback and things like that. But so we'll kind of transition between hearing Orion's point of view and then a scenario. So that'll be that kind of back and forth. And hopefully this kind of works. Yeah, and then I'll have to move.
Hang on a second. I think that's an autistic person. In this video, I'm going to share with you the top signs to spot an autistic person. Welcome back, my friend. Thank you for watching. And if this is the first time you've watched a video of mine, welcome. Thanks for joining me. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. I'm all about raising a level of understanding, acceptance, and appreciation of the autistic community. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please join our community by just hitting that subscribe button. Alrighty then, the other sign to spot an autistic adult in life is, do they have communication challenges, or do they communicate in a very different way? Like I do, do you find them constantly asking questions or interrupting you while you're trying to tell them something? Do you find yourself being peppered with follow-up questions that aren't always even relevant to the topic of the conversation? Autistic adults often like to question every point of a conversation, dissecting every last word. I do this with my wife all the time. I do it to process what I'm hearing so I can understand it and I can contribute. Of course, that doesn't mean it's not incredibly frustrating for the people in the conversation with me. I get that. But critically, without the endless questions, for the most part, autistic people will tend to simply misinterpret what you're saying. So, but for all these endless questions, we may never interpret correctly what you're trying to convey to us.
All right. So with that as a backdrop, we'll do our first scenario. And so what I'll do is, well, you all can read just as well as I can or better, but we'll have the scenario, and then what we want you to do is, in just small groups, we'll take a minute or two, a few minutes, and I'll pull you back. But have you discuss just ways to support the students in these scenarios, and then we'll report back as a large group. Does that make sense, what we have going on? All right, so Bob has autism and is very outgoing and outspoken. He interrupts his classmates through vocal outbursts and asks lots of questions. Bob sometimes will pace in the back of the classroom. He may get visibly frustrated during class, which might appear as anger to some. How might you support this student in your classroom? And insert your classroom or your professional area, right? So, and we have some non-classroom scenarios as well, but discuss amongst yourselves. There you go.
Okay, and then get back together.
All right. Sorry to pull you out of this discussion. I know it sounds like conversations were rich, but do we have a few folks who might want to share some salient points that came out of the short discussion that you had about Bob and how to support Bob? Anyone? Yes.
I think in general, our conversation was focusing on how it's important not just to give a no, like you have to give a yes. So this isn't constructive or working for all the students in the classroom, but here's an option that we can divert to that still allows you to express that energy and that need in a different, more constructive manner.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone else?
We talked about how it's important at the beginning of the term or beginning of the interaction to set out the boundaries, like what's respectful behavior, what activities are acceptable to do in the classroom, are you allowed to leave the classroom and come back, those kinds of things, how to do that without interrupting others, and how to respect each other in your interactions with each other, without having Bob necessarily talk about his perspective, but every student has the opportunity to share their perspective.
Yes, to piggyback off of that, you could even, if you know this is a daily occurrence, you can even remind them at the beginning of every class, like, oh, remember, if you need a break, you can always step out. You can always feel free to take a break and come back.
And there's probably a chance that I worked with Bob. I might have done his intake, so I'm familiar with Bob, and Bob feels like the accessibility office is a safe space. So if you let me know some of the issues you're having with Bob, I could probably have a talk with him too, and explain maybe limit your questions to 5 in the class or something like that, to help the class flow. So I can coach Bob.
I felt like I overheard up here some discussion about how you would handle questions. Maybe I'm wrong there about how you would handle input in the class.
Yeah, I've had quite a few of students that like to speak out and ask lots of questions. And when they're excessive, I will have them write down their questions and make sure I address them and limit them to 5 in the classroom. So I'm you can speak up your big important ones, but the rest of them I'm going to have to do a little more one-on-one. But I also have the opportunity to work with my students a little bit more one-on-one. So
We see a lot of faculty asking them to follow up with an email at the end of class. Just send it. He's limited to 3 and then send me an email. So, yeah.
I saw Heather flinching and then Hornet. Was that a flinch?
Similar. We talked about how the pacing probably wasn't so much of a big deal, but the interruptions were, and perhaps saying, okay, 4 times during the class, we will ask for questions, and that's when you can ask your questions, is during that scheduled time period.
Yeah, it's sort of organizing with that, you can find ways to organize the flow of your class where maybe there's some way for students on an ongoing, sort of unobtrusive basis to add questions. Like we talked about, you can use technology to do that, you can use whiteboards to do that, or you can just ask students on an ongoing basis, take a pause, take a minute, just everyone to write down whatever questions they have, and then have some kind of organized way to work through them. We're talking about how you can organize the flow of your class to maybe incorporate some movement, right, or so you're not everyone's sitting still, and that can help everyone, including these shy students.
Yeah.
As well, because I was somebody who I never talked during my entire graduate career. Would it help me if I think, I have time for that?
Another thing to think about because I think these are all really great ideas, is to think about making sure that whatever structure you end up implementing, that you're consistent with that structure and that you're universally applying that structure.
And I was just going to say, if it doesn't bother you that they're pacing in the back of the classroom, I work with a lot of individuals diagnosed with autism, more in the elementary, middle school, high school level, but the teachers, that's the best way they learn. They learn by sitting there, walking back and forth. You might not think that they're listening to anything you say, but that's how if you ask them, they can repeat everything.
So I have ADHD, and someone pacing behind me in class would destroy my ability to focus on anything. Do you have any good recommendations for, you don't want to single that person out, but making sure that behavior is equaled out for them to give them the best experience doesn't impede other experiences in the classroom?
Yeah, you could even set up a small space in the very back corner to do it, and then if that's their safe space that they're allowed to do that, any other individuals will know oh, that's kind of distracting me, let me sit far away from that, so I can still be successful.
The other thing is the students are the expert in their disability. So if that isn't working for you, that could be a conversation that we would have to find something that would work in the classroom for everyone. That's where stuff like this comes in.
Right, possibly one of these could be a substitute
This is
for the pacing.
a balance board that goes under a desk that you could do and it's quiet.
There's
Something
here's why a foot, it's like a lava lamp. But if you press on it, it changes. So that'd be why.
And our goal here at UCBA is to have some of this stuff that you can check out if you do have a student, or that the student can check out.
There's also exercise bands you can put on around your feet and use with your feet.
Was there something else you want to say?
Yeah, so maybe this might be a topic that you'll cover a little bit later, but it just got me thinking about a general question that paying attention looks very different for different people. people, like what it looks like for me to pay attention is one thing, and what it looks like for somebody else to pay attention. Like, if I'm paying attention, I am not going to be on my phone, or I'm not going to be like really doing much else other than maybe like a little bit of movement, and I'm having eye contact. If I'm paying attention to you, I'm going to be like, right? Which is very uncomfortable, right? Right? Whereas for somebody else, them paying attention might well look like they're not looking at you, and they're like they're doing something else. But for me, just like an interpersonal reaction with people in my personal life who are autistic, ADHD, it's been a real adjustment to be like, you are paying attention to me, right? Like I'm talking to you. So I was just wondering if we were going to talk about that later, like what that looks like and how to best manage.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up, because part of this is to make us aware. What?
Can you give us a quick,
sad back here. Oh, sorry. So basically what was said was that paying attention, like how I pay attention and how you can see that I'm paying attention, has been particularly normalized in our society. Everyone does not pay attention the same way. So there might be someone drawing or coloring, right? But they are paying attention to everything that you're saying. They might not be looking at you in the eyes. And so part of this training and what we hope continues to be ongoing is to be aware of that. And I don't know if there are any sociologists in the room, but like, who decided it was normal anyway? And so we really need to look at our students there. We really need to think about that as we're working with people, and think about some of our own, I don't want to say biases, but possible, right? Oh my goodness, like I say to my kid, are you listening to me? Yes, Mom, as she's looking at her phone. But then sometimes she's not, like sometimes she's not. She can tell me things that I did say. Okay, so I love that, but that's why this is one of the reasons that we wanted to have this. Let's start, how do we support our people, right? Whether it's our colleagues, whether it's our students, how do we normalize behavior that has not been considered normal? How do we support everyone in the classroom by really, and in our offices, by really being organized and different things like that? And then working with our experts across the university to help support these students. So thank you. Yes. Okay.
And I'll just add something that John said, when in doubt, reach out, right? So if you need help, reach out, because in our community, there are a bunch of folks that can help you.
Oh, that's already, you can go to the next one. Yeah, because you already played the video.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, okay, so here's another scenario involving humor or sarcasm. And that was during the first day of a 3-hour class. Sally's teacher was discussing the grading system, and then they joked kind of like, there's like 300 points in the class, but technically, you guys all have a 0 right now, so you're failing. So it hasn't been, And then, and we're going on break now. Well, Sally did not process that humor, and they left the building, and were ready to drop that class. And it took a while for us and the parents actually to figure out why Sally was having such difficulty with this class. But then once it became clear, it helped resolve the situation. And I've even found that myself. Sometimes I'm with students, I make a joke that they might not get it. And that might not just be autism students, it could be your ESL students too. So I guess we could talk.
Maybe the jokes just aren't funny, John. So let's take a minute. We don't want to take as much time as last time. Let's take 1 minute to talk about how might we help the student in this situation. And John, you're terribly funny. I'm sorry. All right, so let's take a minute to discuss how we might be able to help Sally. So I know that was a truncated period of time. We just started talking. I know. a mean one, Mr. Grinch. But does anyone want to share something that your group talked about with regard to helping Sally or a student in this situation?
I think immediate follow-up is important. Going up an email, reaching out, just see is there something that we can do better, try to find out the actual reason. And is there something on our, we can do to clear some things up. I think that instant and as fast as possible communication is, I think, key.
Yep.
Okay, so that was immediate follow-up and communication with the student. That helps resolve the issue.
Anyone else? Yes.
We discussed how this, I feel a little called out because this is something that I maybe have thought about saying, but I haven't said. Like, because I do like to joke and use humor with my classes, and that's just the kind of person I am. That's how I connect with people. But we discussed giving like a PSA at the beginning, like, hey, this is part of my communication style. If a joke doesn't land or if you don't understand it, call me out. Like, let me know. And just, I think there's some self-awareness on like our end as the instructor that's important to know, like, okay, like, yeah, humor's good, it's a way we can communicate, but it's being aware that like some of those things might not always be communicated the way we intend them to be, and just being aware of that.
And I have a similar style, and I said at the beginning, dad jokes are going to fly aplenty, they roll their eyes or whatever, and it might not be the best comedic, strategy, but typically after I say something, I say, oh, you guys know I'm just joking.
Right.
And then we keep it moving, right? And so, but yeah, just being clear. I think I saw on
Right there, in the back, very back.
Yes.
Your joke should punch up. This is a joke that's like making fun of the students and saying that they're all failing. Your jokes should be like actually funny and should punch up at the people who should be, like a punchline should have like not the subject be your students. That's probably not ideal.
Yeah.
Someone who has taken comedic timing classes. Anyone else?
Just to add to that, this is a joke that highlights the power of differential between the students and the teacher. And that's probably something we should be aware of.
Oh boy, altogether. Yep.
And then we have one more, Andy.
Oh, Andy.
Just exactly the same thing. It's an awareness. Like, you are responsible if you aren't aware of the different voices in your class and the different way people think in your class. And to bring something up like this in this kind of situation is not going to land. You need to know that as an instructor walking into the classroom. Time and place.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that this presentation will be posted. We're going to skip the next two scenarios based on time, but you'll have them. And we wanted to talk about some of our resources. So internal resources.
Yeah, so UC CAPS, we are in the college at UCBA, really close to Accessibility Resources, which we love. And so Desiree Gonzalez is going to be your embedded clinician. So she is going to be available in the next couple weeks. She's still getting oriented. Today is her second day at UC. So like, give her a breath and then reach out. And then we also have, of course, our main CAPS information. You can always consult with me. I'm happy to talk through any concerns you might have or need for strategies. And then Dr. Wiersbicki is our person who is running Diverse Minds, which is our therapy support group for individuals who are neurodivergent. So it is, hopefully you have a number of different resources in addition to Desiree as well.
The next link that we have on here, and it says diagram. That's on me. I just put the diagram in because we've had some staff turnover, not in our little office, but in general in AR, and so the diagram is going to look a little different in the next couple weeks. But the AR office here at UCBA is your support. So there is myself, John, Jan Kennedy is here, and then Jacob Gordon went to the AI meeting that. So we're your first point of contact, but then we also report to Clifton, and so we have all the resources that the Clifton office has. You will probably, some of you will be getting emails or have gotten emails about captions, about different things that your students are going to need. If you have any questions about those, start with us, and we can help to help you manage those. We also have the Accessibility Network here at the university, which is separate from the Accessibility Resources Office, and they have a lot of resources for faculty and that are working to make their courses accessible both online and in person. So that's a good option. We also have the College to Career program, which is funded through Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, and it provides an OOD counselor right on our campus. So our campus, Doug is housed in Clifton, but can service all of our students. And his whole job is to get our UC students from college to a career. So then they have funding, which is always nice, and they have different types of support that we can provide. So just keeping that in mind as you're working with students. A lot of times students with autism actually don't need academic accommodations, so we don't register them with our office, but they can benefit from things that OOD can provide, like job coaches to help with some of that social cue type stuff, things like that.
And then, of course, there's always various learning opportunities through the CETL and then through our LTC here. Hopefully we can work with LTC and get some things on the books. I know we're flying through. Some external resources.
So I work for Beyond the Label. We are in-home therapy-based company for individuals with autism. We serve the tri-state. One thing that separates us being in-home is we are able to go to school with them. We're able to go to the community with them. We have clients from like 18 months all the way up to 26. We're able to individualize their program and focus on what they need. Some of my older clients, I'm working on functional living, like job prep skills. My little ones, the like 18 months old, I'm just going in and, helping with some of the behavioral stuff, some of the communication. And we also are able to provide outside trainings and any resources to anyone in the community that may need it. There's also a lot of the counties, like Hamilton County, Butler County, Montgomery County, they all have a Board of Developmental Disabilities. They're a great resource. And then the Autism Society of Greater Cincinnati.
And then there's a magazine, Attitude, ADD, right? We get that. They talk about a lot of different neurodiverse identities, including autism, ADHD, and then they also talk about some mental health concerns as well, anxiety, depression, those kinds of things. So it's a really great resource, lots of really good articles. I recommend it to a lot of my clients.
Okay, so as far as some things going on in the future, we're trying to start a neurodiverse student affinity group. We're going to be putting posters up soon, emailing all of our students, putting announcements in the Thursday announcements, and maybe have our kickoff meeting about the third week into the school. Hopefully we can get an active group going. Possibly we can find a sensory space room. Claremont has a very detailed, what do you want to tell them a little bit about that?
We had a generous donor, and so we had a whole office renovation that included the sensory room and meditation space. Sensory room is the one that is the first nationally that we believe that it was built floor to ceiling in, with a sensory space in mind. It's not retrofitted. So it's exciting that it's supposed to be done last Friday, but it is UC timing, so hopefully in the next couple weeks.
And can you just explain what a sensory space can do for people?
Yes, so a sensory space allows really anybody can benefit from it, as we've seen today with some of the toys, but it allows people to come in and decompress and to recenter themselves, especially on a campus like ours where they don't have dorms to go back to. And so it allows just a place where they can meet their needs. A lot of K-12 schools have these spaces, and so these students have built these skills, but then they don't have anywhere to go to use it. I know my kindergartner has a calm corner in his classroom
And so this summer, we actually had a student come to orientation, and it was overwhelming for this student, and she had to step away for a bit. We didn't have a sensory space, so she was able to go to another location just to, decompress and get herself together. And she was able to do that because someone spoke up, et cetera, et cetera. But if we had a sensory space, think about how that could have benefited her, and then all of the other students that aren't saying anything, right, that it could benefit them as well. So
We also are doing, within the Welcome Week packets in Clifton and some other events, we're doing sensory notifications, so letting people know what their experience would be like at certain events. So if it's going to be loud, if there's going to be physical expectations of what you're going to do, and then what are your alternatives for it. So that is where those extra spaces can be advertised, and that is really helpful sometimes for students. And anyone really.
And then just quickly, want to add that I'm working with AR. My office is working with AR to provide some of these things, some of the toys that you've been playing with, or the sensory items you've been playing with. And so I don't know the mechanism as yet, but we'll have some baskets that will be centrally located where they can be checked out, and you can use them in your courses or in your office spaces or wherever you engage with students.
That's helpful on test days, on days you're talking about really tricky content, or just generally if you have a student in your class that has a need and you think it might benefit them, you can provide it to all the students.
And then we are at probably spring semester at the earliest, going to be engaging in an on Blue Ash campus therapy group. It may not be specific to supporting neurodiverse students, but it is going to be a space where a lot of individuals will benefit from just having those conversations, talking about your emotions, talking about self-regulation, and really processing what it's like to be a college student.
So one of the things, I know we got to go because we're holding you all up from lunch. We wanted to talk to you about what kind of supports you need. Obviously, we've talked about behaviors. We've talked about some things that could help our students. I've had this conversation with a variety of people that if you ever have kids, like little ones, and you're like, there are some kids you say to them, okay, little daddy, do you think it's time to go take a bath? And then they get the clue, right? They understand, yeah, I guess it's time to go take a bath and let's clean up. Others, you have to say, little Johnny, put your toys away. It's time to take a bath. And it's okay to do that. So as we think about, all of these things, what are some supports that you might need? And if you think about it later, you can always email me. We can try to organize some training surrounding that. But what do you need? How can we further support our community? Yes.
Professional development, because I wish this was 3 hours long because there's so many questions.
Same.
Like I teach philosophy, writing, argument construction, dealing with large texts, and just stuff like, how we process information, like how I teach these things that may come naturally to me but not to somebody else in terms of just like picking out salient parts of the text, for example. So I need like a real long, in-depth, like professional development stuff around here.
Yep, I'm right.
I'm not quite sure what it is, so.
Professional development.
Professional development around like literally stuff like how do you teach, skills of picking out salient things in a text, something like that, that may like very differently depending like on where it's at where you are. So nuts and bolts pedagogy stuff.
So I think it would be lovely to have the flip side of that. So how to, like professional development on how to be a professional that is neurodivergent.
Well, we do have a faculty and staff group for people, not just neurodivergent, but faculty and staff that are disabled. So there is support through there, and that's a really good opportunity that we could look at training for. But yeah, that's good too, because what we offer to our students as far as accommodations and supports can be requested by our faculty and staff as well.
develop this affinity group, then to your point, just getting that feedback when we have these students in this space and engaging with them. That's awesome. Thank you.
Will faculty know if they have students in their classes that are receiving accommodations? So will we know whether or not we have students in our class that are autistic?
So their diagnosis is protected. So they would, if they choose to identify, they'll provide you with an accommodation letter, but it does not say what their diagnosis is. They can choose to share it, or sometimes we could use those things that were suggested in the video to make an educated guess, but not unless they want to share.
Just as I'm a new faculty member, and I think it's valuable for all faculty members, just know kind of the process for how you go about maybe suggesting some of these resources to students if we notice that they're struggling and they haven't gone that route themselves, or even with like mental health services, because I think some of these go hand in hand. Just like the process, like what we as faculty are responsible for, whether it's reporting or referring or anything like that, like just kind of laying out what that looks like for us.
So as far as accessibility resources, if a student identifies to you as having a disability, so they tell you they're autistic, they tell you they have ADHD, your responsibility as a faculty member at the University of Cincinnati is to refer them to our office. We always suggest that you do that. You can verbally do it, but follow it up with an email. You can always copy us, and that way we can follow back up with that student. We can't make them register with us. We sometimes get emails that say the student said they're autistic. Can you reach out to them? We can't do that either. It's their decision. If they have not identified, but you think it's something they could benefit from, you could include us in a list of other resources. So you could include it with CAPS and AR and some other things.
Yeah, you can just generally say, you know, you might be struggling. There are some resources for you. There's the math lab, the writing center, accessibility resources. You can just kind of lump us in, so you're not like, you need to go to AR. You know,
Two more quick
push into that. Lump us together.
In terms of CAPS, you can make the referral by giving our number. So it's going to go to our main campus office, and then one of our I'm sorry, I'm getting all my words mixed up. Administrative coordinators is going to make the appointment for the student. At some point, we will have online scheduling as well, and then they would be scheduled either with one of our main CAPS clinicians remotely, or if they're able to be on campus, they can meet with an on-campus, main campus provider, or they can be scheduled with Desiree. If there is a concern that is urgent, you need someone to talk to them right away. You're concerned about safety. Of course, anytime there's immediate safety concerns, 911. But if there is a concern about safety that is not an immediate safety concern, but you want them talking to someone right away, that is a call. Again, it's going to be our main number. The number is on the back of your Bearcat card, their Bearcat card. You can also look us up on the website, but it is 513-556-0648. That main number is not only going to get you a hold of someone to schedule, it's also going to be there for emergency services as well. So someone needs to talk to a clinician during 8 to 5 hours.
Say that number one more time.
Yep. Yep. 513.
No, you keep
Oh, you got it. Okay. And during business hours, one of our clinicians in that main office is actually going to be able to support that student on the phone. If it is after business hours, we have a contract with a service called Protocol, and they will support that student.
I think we had two just micro questions, right?
Mine's not even a question. Mine was just saying, I know the month's plans are done for phase 5, which is, all the spaces that might include a sensory space, but you can always put a plug in, like, hey, there might be a corner where we can put some sensory space, right?
For sure.
Yeah, we're saying it in every room.
Okay, good. I figured you might be, but
Yes.
it's not built yet, so you might have a chance.
And then Tiffany, real quick, and then Tamisha, if you'll give us the benedictions.
Okay.
So, is there a time frame in your class, like in the semester, where a student they have to give you the accommodations form by? I mean, so they've been going all semester, and then the last week of class, they give you an accommodations form?
Yes, so a student can identify at any point in the
Okay.
semester. Accommodations generally are not retroactive. So when they identify you with their form, that's when they start.
Okay.
So,
So
yeah,
even if it's 3 days before their final exam.
we actually get a lot of students because they don't know about us, or they've recently been diagnosed, or they thought they could do it. We got it.
So, thank you. If you have any questions or suggestions or what else we could do, please let me know. And I want to thank these people. I mean, they have been fantastic.